Hari Om. Let's start with the prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Amadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. So we are doing Panchadashi and we just completed the sloka 13 that tells you what is in the Jagare, in the waking state, of the objects which are of varieties and varieties, which are Jagare Pruthaku, and they are Vaichityaha. They are various types of both, and some objects have colors and forms, and some are sounds, and so all the five senses can gather and have the knowledge of the object through five senses, and the five senses bring the attributes of the form objects, and in the mind it forms a vritti, a thought, and the thought is illumined by the consciousness for me to be conscious of the thought and therefore conscious of the object out there. And that's how the whole knowledge of whole thing is. So every object is. So knowledge of every object in the waking state occurs by this process where consciousness that I am joining with the existence of the object expressed as the thought in my mind for me to be conscious of the existence of the object. So in every knowledge there is a consciousness, a knower, and the known, the object, which are different, and they are joining together for the knowledge, prama, to take place. And that's what is being discussed. And therefore the objects differ, but the consciousness that I am doesn't differ. So viveka, which is called tattva viveka, we're talking about tattva viveka, involves shifting my attention in every knowledge that is taking place, because there's a consciousness and also the object knowledge, and they are inseparable, because I cannot be conscious of not having any object, and we'll go into the details later. But in every knowledge there will be always the subject object, subject object. The objects that I know differs, but the subject does not differ. In the waking state, from the morning until I go to bed, I know this continuously. Knowledge comes through the five senses through which operating, and that's how the knowledge of the waking state is. So this is true from my birth all the way to the death, and that's how the operations. As I go older, my sense capacities may be decreasing, therefore the knowledge of the objects will not be as clear as the actual existence of the object. So the reflected attributive knowledge of the object will not be representative of the object per se, because my senses are not able to function to the utmost capacity. And that's true even when I am color blind, all that is because of the sense problems, not the object problems. Now the Vidyaranya takes us to the dream state and explains the same thing happens, because a knower I am has to be there for me to know the objects in the dream world. Let's read the sloka 4. Tatha swapnetra vedyam tu Tatha swapnetra vedyam tu Nastiram jagare stiram Nastiram jagare stiram Tadbedo tasya yo samvit Tadbedo tasya yo samvit Eka rupa na vidyate Eka rupa na vidyate. Together. Tato swapnotra vedyam tu Nastiram jagare stiram Tadbedo tasya yo samvit tad ekarupa na vidyate. So tatha swapne atra vedyam. Here in this statement says tatha swapne atra in the case of the dream state. So when I enter into a dream world, there's a varieties of objects in the dream world, and same things occur. Shabda sparsaya vidya vaichitya swapne in the prataka, in the swapnasti or swapne atra prataka. So there can be varieties and varieties of objects in the dream, and there I also have a senses, 5 senses operating, and even though I may be blind in the waking state, I may not be blind in the dream state, and I may have full eyesight in the dream, because I can dream that I have full eyesight. And I may not have 20/20 vision in the waking state, I may have full 20/20 vision in the dream state. So the dream state differs in that sense, that I am projecting as though the total world of plurality, and I am a subject there in my own dream, as though I entered as a subject, unlike the dream state later, and as though I am a subject in the dream, and I am perceiving the world which is external to me, external to the subject knower. And in the Mandukya Upanishad, a parallel statement from the waking state and in the dream state is also, this is Ekona Vimshati, says there are 19 gateways, Ekona Vimshati, one less than 20. Says there are 19 gateways that are there through which I interact with the world. 19 gateways is essentially 5 sense of 5 karmendriyas, 5 jnanendriyas, and so on. There is the 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 4. So these are the 19 gateways through which I will be interacting with the world. So essentially I have 5 senses. I can see, I can hear, I can taste in my dream, and I can touch. So all 5 Shabdasparsa, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha are functioning of a dream senses, and they can only, dream senses can only see dream objects. They cannot see waking objects, obviously. So I may be thirsty in my dream, and there may be water right there on the table when I put it before I went to sleep. But that water is useless for me. For a dreamer, dream is not a dream as long as I am in the dream. It's a real for me. So there is a sun, there is a when I went, I made sure that all lights are off and all that. It is dark for me to sleep. At the same time, I can dream, and in my dream there is a bright sunlight, and the sunlight there is different from the sunlight in the waking state. So therefore there may not be sunlight, because it may be, there is a dark, is a night maybe, and at the same time I can dream all that. So there is contradictory experiences of waking state and the dream state. Yet in every object in the dream I know. How do I know? Same process occurs. The light, there may be darkness in the dream that I cannot see object there. So I am dreaming a darkness, and if you ask me, is there an object? I said I won't see it, therefore I won't know. I have to answer exactly parallel. So therefore the dream light has to illumine the dream object for me to see, and knowledge of that occurs again by the same process, and therefore it says tatha swapne. In the same way, all the knowledge occurs, vedyam. So atra vedyam, there also the knowledge of takes place. So in every knowledge, there also there is a object which is inert, and existence expressed as the existence aspect, and the subject that I am joining together for me a conscious of the existence of the object. So consciousness that I am has to join with the existence of the object for me to be conscious of the existence of the object. And therefore in the same way that occurs in the waking state, but that consciousness that I am is not different from the same consciousness in the waking state. Because when you say I was dreaming, I saw things there. Who is that I? Same knower, because I can recollect even sometimes if I remember the dream experiences and say I was the one who went through. So I am the same one who saw a ghost in my dream, which is not, and therefore I am afraid, and because of fear I got up and say I was dreaming, I may say. That means I was seeing a ghost. So I am the point of consciousness does not differ, and that's what is being emphasized here. So tatha swapne atra vedyam, what can be known is through in the same process of Shabda Sparsa Rupa Rasa Gandha, 5 sense organs, of varieties of Vaichitya, varieties of which can be seen through the five senses. So subject I is there, object this is there, and subject is different from the object, and these two are together, joined together for me to be conscious of the existence of the object. So existence of the object is established by the knowledge of its existence. So nastiram jagare stiram. But however, here Vidyaranya says, nastiram jagare stiram. It is not as stiram, is not as permanent as waking state. Not that it is permanent, not that waking state is permanent. Its waking state is more permanent than the dream state. Actually, the fact of this is, as long as I have the body, mind and intellect, they are as permanent as the body, mind, intellect that perceives. So if I have the dream body, dream mind and dream intellect, that I am in the dream state, the world, the object world, the varieties of Shabda Sparsa Rupa Rasa Gandha are operating, and I can perceive the objects out there. So the reality of the dream objects and the temporal reality of the objects, dream objects, as much as the temporal reality of the dreamer itself. Just as in the waking state. When I come from the waking dream state and I am awakened to that, I am transcending that state into the waking state. Therefore, from the waker's point, I say that it is not stiram, it is not as permanent, because this Panchadashi is being studied in the waking state. So from the waker's point, so it is not nastiram jagare stiram. So it's not as real or as permanent, but the reality of the statement is made by the waker and not by the dreamer. For a dreamer, that is real. A dreamer can go to sleep and dream in the dream, and that's called second order dream. For him, he again projects in his dream, he can project objects, and they are not as stiram as the first order dream. So the same order of reality is only shifted here, and the reality of this world is also not really stiram when you transcend to the higher state of consciousness. So one has to look at the ontological status of each one. So it's less real. The dream is less real from the point of a waking state, and waking state is less real from the point of turiyam. Turiyam is essentially the absolute truth. So here the statement is tu nastiram jagare stiram tada swapnetra vedyantu nastiram jagare stiram tato bedostasya yo samvitu. So ekarupya na vidyate. So nastiram jagare stiram tato beda na beda. Na is applies here also. Says that indeed the stiram tat ataha tat beda, these two states are essentially differ from the point of the relative realities of that. However, tayoho samvitu ekarupa na vidyate. So even though there is a waking state, In the waking state, there are different things. In the dream state, there are different things. And the waking state objects differ from the dream state objects. Things that I don't see in the waking state, I am able to create because I have knowledge of creation. Therefore, I can see that I can have all sorts of things that I assemble because I know horns and I know heads. I can create horns with the heads in my dream, even though I don't see in the waking state. So the things are differ, the objects are differ, the states are differ, but I am there, I am a waker and I am a dreamer. That I am part is the same, and as though I am moving from the waking state to a dream state and knowing there, I am also a knower of the dream objects. So here the consciousness that I am, so tad vedo tas tayoho, so tayoho the ekarupa samvitu na vidyate, tayoho ekarupa samvitu na vidyate. So that the ekarupa, it is one of the, in every knowledge of the dream objects, I know this, I know this, I know this. The consciousness does not differ in the knowledge. I am conscious of this, I am conscious of this, I am conscious of this. Actually, it should be not I am conscious of. In me, in my consciousness, it is there. The consciousness that I am is illumining this object. Consciousness that I am is illumining the other object. So objects are getting illumined as they are coming in form of vrittis by the mind. And the objects differ, but the consciousness doesn't differ. And the consciousness in the dream does not differ from the consciousness in the waking state. Therefore, it's ekarupaha. And that samvit is consciousness, is ekarupa na vidyate. It does not differ. So I am a waking state, I see varieties of objects. And in the dream state, I see varieties of objects. In every object, I have the knowledge of the knower and the known. Knower and the known. Knowns keep changing, but knower doesn't change. It is the same consciousness. And the same knower is there in the waking state and also in the dream. There is no difference in the knower. And the depth of memory is different, only that's because of the how mind can store that information. Mind is only throwing out, and it's not as much as to record it for the recollection as much. You recollect some, you don't recollect some. In the same way, the memory in the waking state also, you recollect some, you don't recollect some. The capacity to reflect varies from mind to mind. All that is part of the property of the mind, but not property of the samvit. I am illumining whatever that senses are bringing and the vrittis are forming and so on. So there is only one consciousness, that so I had to use now the viveka, tattva viveka. This is the title of the chapter. I had to use the discriminative intellect in this assemble of knower-known duality in every knowledge. So in every knowledge there are always two, and I cannot separate these two. So pure consciousness cannot be separated from the object that I am conscious of, and when there is no object, I am conscious of the absence of the object only. That we'll see when you go to a dream state, deep sleep state, that he is going to do in the next sloka. So in every knowledge there are always two, knower and the known, and these two are together and they are inseparable. One is of the higher order of reality because it is not changing, other is changing end. So I said whenever things are changing, there has to be changeless entity in the changing things, and that changeless entity is conserved through the process of the knowledge. So therefore, in every knowledge of this, the conservation is that I am conscious of, I am conscious of, I am conscious of things that are there, one thought, other thought, and absence of the thought also, that I am conscious of. And that consciousness that I am is ekarupaha na vidyate. It cannot change. and it's a changeless entity, therefore it's more permanent, and therefore its reality is different from the reality of the changing things. A changeless entity has a higher order of reality compared to changing things. This has to be grasped, and this is where the Advaita Vedanta differ from other philosophical. So in the dream example, the dream is called the Pratibhasika and the waking state is called the Vyavaharika, and the absolute, that is Paramarthika. So these states are coming into picture because the reality or the degree of reality is changing. Pratibhasika is mental projection. I can have Pratibhasika even the waking state also. When I imagine something which is not there, I am daydreaming, and that becomes my own projection, not Ishvara's projection. So the point is, the world that is there, that is created, is Ishvara's projection. That means creation by the Ishvara. I didn't create it and then I am not sin. It's not an idealistic philosophy or the philosophy of idealism, or philosophy of Vijnanamada, where the mind is projecting what it is and then seeing it. But it's not that way. It is the projection of beyond my local mind. So this has to be clear. Waking state is a projection of the total mind, that's called Ishvara. So it's Ishvara's projection. So local mind doesn't project it. Local mind may utilize what the Ishvara has created and make another creation out of it. So when I build a house is not Ishvara's creation. I am taking the materials of the Ishvara's creation, bricks and this and that and all that, which is Ishvara's creation, and reassembling in a form that is conducive for my liking. So that creation aspect of it is coming in from the Jiva, using the material that is created by the Ishvara. I don't create a brick and then use the brick for my house. So the creation of the matter, the whole universe, is done by Ishvara, and Ishvara is nothing but the total mind and consciousness utilizing the total mind. We'll come back to the Maya aspect of it later, but at least the total aspect of it is total mind. The projection is the whole the world is. And in the same way, when I go to a dream, my total mind is the waking mind is projecting the varieties of object there. So I only dream what I know. I don't dream what I don't know. Have you ever dreamt Gaga Boo Boo in your dream? So what is Gaga? I don't know what's Gaga Boo. How can I dream? So for me to dream Gaga Boo Boo, I should know what it is. And therefore, I have to have the knowledge of creation of my dream. So I am a Sarvajna of my dream. Things that are made in my memory, which I might have forgotten, may come up. Things that are there in the previous life also can come up in the dream. I may be dreaming lots of things which I am conscious of in the waking state. But that was there in my mind for me to project. So my waking mind becomes the total mind as like an Ishvara of the dream creation. But that pervades the whole universe, just as the Ishvara pervades the whole universe as the total mind. The same way, a waker's mind pervades the whole dream world of all dream objects, including the objects and as well as other living beings that I have created in my dream. After creating a dream, I, as though, quote unquote, enter into my own creation as one subject different from the other object. I created the forest, I created the tiger, and I created myself. Now I am trying to save from myself from the tiger that I myself created. All that occurs can be that myself is, now we are talking about consciousness, but the mind of the waker's mind. So waker mind becomes a total mind, and individual minds still differ, and the total mind pervades all the individual mind. Exactly parallel system to the waking state. So Ishvara is pervading the whole universe, and I am a local mind, and the total mind is the projection of the whole universe, and local mind is perceiving through Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, the 5 senses that I am perceiving. All that has to be. So ontological status of each. So total mind is different from a local mind, and the same way in the waking state, and which is called a Vyavaharika Satyam, and because of the higher order of reality, and the Pratibhasika Satyam for the dream world, which is of a lower order of reality. Only order of reality keeps changing, so we cannot put everything all are in one basket and say everything is real. Everything is real, but still one is more real than the other, and therefore we differentiate, and that's why we call it, one is Pratibhasika, one is Vyavaharika, other is Paramarthika. And that's why Advaita Vedanta comes close to the human experience itself to analyze the problem. And also scripture itself says in the whole Mandukya Upanishad talks about the 3 states of consciousness and so on. So the point here is the consciousness in the waking state, the knower in the waking state does not differ from the waker, from the knower in the dream state. Known objects only differ. And objects are relatively less real compared to the waking state. But the consciousness, which is Ekarupaha, it's one only, and Nabhijyate. There is no difference in the consciousness between the objects, conscious of this, conscious of this, and also there is no difference in the consciousness of a waking state and the dream state. Same consciousness, knower, but the changing things are different, and the changing things can differ, but at the same time, the consciousness is Ekarupaha. So Ekarupana Bhijyate. Tato Vedastayo Samvit Ekarupana Bhijyate. So one consciousness that pervades the whole universe. With that, we go to the next sloka, sloka 5. Now it goes into the dreams, deep sleep state. So we have analyzed the waking state and we analyzed the dream state. Now go down to the deep sleep state. Swapno stitasya saushupta, swapno stitasya saushupta, tamo bodho bhave smrutihi, tamo bodho bhave smrutihi, sa chava buddha vishaya, sa chava buddha vishaya, avabuddham tattadha tamaha, avabuddham tattadha tamaha. Together, swapno stitasya saushupta, tamo bodho bhavit smrutihi, sa chava buddha vishaya, avabuddham tattadha tamaha, avabuddham tattadha tamaha. Swapno stitasya saushupto. So essentially, swapna utitasya saushupto tamo bodha smrutihi bhave. Now what happens in the dream state? Now he is analyzing the deep sleep state, and having gone the deep sleep state, when I am awakened from the deep sleep state to the waking state, I am recollecting information. And that's what, because in the deep sleep state I cannot say I am conscious of the objects or absence of object in the deep sleep state. I cannot make the statement as I said in the waking state and the dreams in the dream state, where in the waking state I am conscious of this, I am conscious of that. In the dream state also I am conscious of this and I am conscious of that. So the statements are made, but in the deep sleep state I am not conscious of anything. So I cannot say any statement also cannot be said that I am not conscious of anything also I cannot say. So I do not know anything in the dreams, in the deep sleep state, but I do not know that I do not know also in the deep sleep state. So one has to be careful here. So what I do not know in the deep sleep state is recollected as an experience. It says, I slept very well. So what did you do? I don't know. Where were you? I don't know. I don't know means I have no knowledge of Desha, Kala, Vastu, Parichinnatvam. I don't know the difference of either time-wise, space-wise, and the object-wise. No difference of any kind I have no. So Vaichityaha, like that, varieties are not there in the deep sleep state. So, but what is there? This I don't know. I know that I don't know, but even the knowledge that I know is only a recollection of the experience of that state. So we have to be careful here, because Vidyaranya is going to talk about the deep sleep state exhaustively in the 11th chapter. In the 11th chapter, we will going to analyze more about who is the deep sleeper and so on. But just for the record, before we go, in the deep sleep state, what really happens? We should have some understanding, and then we can understand this sloka very well. So what exactly happens when I go to a deep sleep state? From the waking state, I move to dream state and the deep sleep state. So I'm essentially withdrawing each kosha as I go to dream to deep sleep state. From the waking state, I have all 5 koshas. Pancha koshas are there operating in the waking state. Pancha koshas is the Annamaya kosha. The Annamaya kosha is that which is product of Annam, that which is sustained by Annam and go back to become Annam. That's what is Annamaya kosha. Essentially gross matter. Then Pranamaya kosha, essentially all physiological prana, pana, vyana, udana, samana, the 5 physiological functions belong to that kosha. So I'm able to breathe, and I'm able to digest, and I'm able to distribute, I'm able to excrete. All those processes are part of the Pranamaya kosha. Then comes the Manomaya kosha, the mental sheath, and then Vijnanamaya kosha, the intellectual sheath, and the 5th one is Anandamaya kosha, that is essentially Karana Sharira. So essentially we have 5 sheaths, and when I go to a deep sleep state, the Annamaya kosha merges into Pranamaya kosha, and the Pranamaya kosha merges into the Manomaya kosha. Manomaya kosha merges into Vijnanamaya kosha, because this is a hierarchy. And Vijnanamaya kosha, that is intellectual sheath, with all the previous sheaths merged into it, it now becomes a subtle form, or as though it folds itself into subtle, and that itself is called Anandamaya kosha. So Anandamaya kosha is not separate kosha, it is the Vijnanamaya kosha with all the previous koshas all in the full form, in the subtle form, and that is essentially called Anandamaya kosha. And that Anandamaya kosha is essentially Karana Sharira, because everything is folded in the causal state, and that's why it's called Karana Sharira. And that Sharira is operating at a level where my physiological functions are still going on and everything is being maintained, but the knowledge cannot take place because the subject-object duality itself is folded, since the intellect that differentiates the subject-object is folded. So what is there in the deep sleep state? It is the all 5 koshas with the Vijnanamaya folded, and that is what is called the Anandamaya kosha. But still the consciousness is still there, which has nothing to do with it. It is illumining the folded Vijnanamaya kosha, and that Anandamaya kosha is being illumined. And now what is there in that kosha? It is the absence of the subject-object distinctions. So knower, known, distinctions or recognitions are not there at that time. So what is there in the deep sleep state? It is the absence of the recognition of the subject-object duality. And that is what is called ignorance. Ignorance means I don't know. I don't know means I am a knower and a known. The duality is the folded state, and that I cannot even express that I don't know, because for that also I need Vijnanamaya Kosha, which is folded. So even though I know that I don't know, I cannot express that I don't know, that I don't know in the deep sleep state. What I don't know what is subject and what is object. The distinction of whatever I may have know, all the chemistry which is objective knowledge is also not there, because I am a knower of chemistry, but I am a knower and the chemistry known itself is folded, and therefore the duality itself is folded. It's only the absence of the duality there that is known but not expressed now. But to express again, I need all the instruments again. I need a buddhi, and I need not only buddhi, I need a speech, and everything else is required. Kamendriyas are required, all that. So since they're all folded, what is there is experience of the absence of the subject-object duality. Subject-object is where object is of particular pruthak, just like there are varieties of objects with attributive content, and attributive content comes from the senses. So senses are all folded, so I have no attributive content of the object there. So absence of attributive content is absence of a particular object. Right? Because every object has an attribute. So what is the knowledge that I have in the deep sleep state? Knowledge of the absence of all the things that I know. That again is the pramana. How? Says, remember, it's called the Anupalabdhi Pramana, where it says, do you know our classical example? Can you go and see if there's a pot in the other room, and you come back and say there is no pot? So how do you know there is no pot? It's not there. If it is not there, how do you know it is there? How do you know it's not there? So absence of the pot that I know is not there. That means pot is I know, and not any particular pot. If I say, do you know, is there a blue pot there? And there may be other pots, but you don't see a blue pot. You don't see a pot with the attribute of blueness there, and that you come back. That means you have the knowledge of the blueness and you have the knowledge of pot. You have to have a pot with the blue. There may be a blue chair, but that doesn't count. You have to have a pot with the blueness, and that pot is not there. So absence of a particular knowledge that you are familiar with is not there, and therefore similarly absence of all knowledge that I am familiar in the waking state and the dream state is not there because of the non-recognition of that. So it's just like in a pitch dark room, I cannot see whether the object is there or not, because I cannot see. The pramana cannot operate. So essentially the existence of any object cannot be established in the dreams, in the deep sleep state. They may be there, the world may be there, but I am not conscious of it. So from my point, there is no world, because for the world to establish, I have to establish not only the world, the thought and the thought, and therefore every object becomes a thought in the mind, and a thought and a thought, the sequence of thought, a gap between the thought and becomes a time. Time is nothing but a gap between two sequential observations. That's called Einsteinian definition. Is a gap between two sequential observations is a time. But for me to recognize the sequential observations, observer has to be there, a conscious entity is there. So without the observer, sequential things will not have no meaning to record the time. So all that is implied here. So here says in the deep sleep state, I have the knowledge of the absence of everything, or actually I should have an experience of everything, but that experience is only recorded as absence of everything. So absence of everything itself is the object of my knowledge. We have to be careful. Absence of the ignorance of the presence of all the objects itself is a knowledge. Absence of the presence of the part. Absence of the presence of the part means absence of the part. Absence of the part is a knowledge also, and that itself is an objective knowledge there, because I know that there is no part there. So that's an objective knowledge. Absence of the part is an object of my knowledge, and that I know. So that is the object of my knowledge. Similarly, absence of any particular knowledge itself is the ignorance, and that ignorance itself is an object of my knowledge, just as the darkness is an objective of my knowledge in a pitch dark room. I know it is dark there. I don't need the light for me to know that it's dark, because I can see. Same way, the knowledge of the absence of all objects, which is essentially ignorance. Ignorance is the object of knowledge or in the deep sleep state, and that has to be illumined, because I can recollect that information, and that is going to be analyzed more exhaustively. We will do that in the next talk. Tomorrow there will not be any talks, because our production manager is taking off, so therefore we will meet day after tomorrow. This will stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay.
அம்மா கூப்பிட்டாங்க சார்.
அம்மா.
நான் கொஞ்ச நேரம் சென்று பண்ணுங்கம்மா.
Oh.